Hi everyone, this is Isa.
And this is Arya.
And welcome to My Favorite Temptation.
If this is your first time listening in, we're so happy to have you. This is a podcast about the various temptations that people like us go through every day.
Yeah, so we just talk it out, share some facts and personal anecdotes, and keep you informed and entertained.
As our podcast is about our favorite temptations, with favorite being very sarcastically, of course. Isa, you just turned 21.
So today we will be talking about alcohol. We're going to be talking about alcohol in our lives and what we've seen. Alcohol is actually the drug of choice in American society, more so than any nicotine product or illegal drug, which is so strange to me because in the UK there is so many people smoking all the time.
Right.
And I feel like that's even more of a thing here than alcohol is.
Right.
So while drinking can assist when having a fun time at social events, there is a much darker side to one of America's favorite pastimes. So Arya, why don't you go ahead and tell us about your experience?
So essentially, I think personally, alcohol and I have had a really weird relationship. Juxtaposing the mainstream high school and college experience portrayed in the media to what I've actually experienced is interesting, to say the least. The hyperfixation on alcohol to have a good time is so ingrained in the particularly American post-secondary education experience that any other variation to that seems not normal.
Yeah.
I feel like you and I are in very particularly formative parts of our lives where temptations such as alcohol run very rampant in the social aspect of our lives. In some ways, I feel like performing or acting a certain way, honestly. At parties, even though when you're not drinking, you still make sure to hold a red Solo cup in your hand. It's keeping up a facade for social acceptance.
Honestly, that's something I've seen so many times at parties when, I don't want to be drinking. I still have to carry around a cup because people will come up to me and be like, hey, do you want a beer? No, you need a beer. Let's get you a beer. And you feel so much pressure to just be holding that and be a part of the group.
Definitely. And honestly, I just keep water in there sometimes because alcohol's dehydrating, as we'll get through some facts later. But I just can't tolerate anymore. But I still want to be a part of the group, that group acceptance formation. And I would very much argue that alcohol is very much performative.
So for me, I just feel especially in the culture that we're in the college ideas and the media, what they show us.
Yes.
It shows us so much of just yeah, you need to go party. Yeah, you need to go drink really hard. Go have fun with your friends. And there's so many Instagram accounts and different businesses that sell t-shirts and things like that have drinking slogans, or they have red Solo cups or beers, and
right.
Even beer commercials now, they're not aimed towards dads like they used to be. They're aimed towards college students.
Exactly.
Which I just think is so strange that they are really focusing on college students when even in America you can't legally drink until you're 21, so you're a third year.
Yep.
Yeah. How about when you were growing up, what was that like for you?
So I feel so my parents are from Afghanistan, which is an Islamic country. Alcohol was not allowed in the religion. However, my parents were never religious. And so when they became acclimated to America in the 80s and 90s, they came to become sort of alcohol connoisseurs. So I was surrounded by alcohol growing up with them, but only with the adults I was with. My parents love their wine, and my extended family is composed of, traditionalists who's never touched it and those who accept it as part of the American Western lifestyle. Either way, for me, as high school approached, alcohol became more available to my fellow peers. I was stuck at a crux where I was surrounded by alcohol, but also not at the same time. My mom is definitely more relaxed about this, and my dad, since I've entered college, she would pour me a glass of wine alongside with hers. However, before I actually left to come to London here to study abroad, my dad offered me a glass of Prosecco, kind of like a going away drink.
Oh, that's cute.
I was so shocked because I thought he would be a lot more strict about me drinking alcohol. However, he said because I would be legal there in the UK and I would turn 21, as I'm still 20, in the UK as well, that he would allow me this drink. Thinking back on this now, I can only imagine how my interactions with alcohol in front of my father will be once I return back to the US in the future. I know that you, Isa, have a similar but also kind of more opposite experience about this.
Yeah. So my parents were very open about drinking. I mean, my dad grew up in the hippie times, so he always was very open about drinking and all sorts of substances. But my mom came from Mexico, and just not to be stereotypic, but my mom really likes her tequila.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's always been a very big thing in my family that we drink together. I mean, ever since I was young, my I call myself like the bartender of our family events, because my family taught me how to make drinks, but how to make drinks properly. So for me, like, I know the exact measurements that should go into a drink. While at a lot of parties, my friends will be like, "Oh, like, do you want a drink?" I'll be like, "Oh yeah, sure, of course I do." And then they'll pour me a cup just full of vodka, and I'm like, "This is like 6 drinks."
That is like, this is not a shot, right?
This is not a shot of something and then just Sprite. It's just an entire cup full of vodka, which I feel is why so many students get so drunk and like do binge drink during parties. But for me, like, I learned really early on what a healthy relationship with alcohol looks like, just through my parents, which I think has been really amazing for me, because while a lot of students were getting the college talk of like, oh, like, don't drink in college, like, be really safe, like, don't accept drinks from strangers. I've been getting that my entire life, and so they were never really worried for me whenever I came to college. And even since I've been in college, like, I haven't had any problems with alcohol. I feel like I've been very safe, and it's also kind of made me the mom of my friend group, because so many of them do not have a healthy relationship with alcohol because they've been so oppressed for so long. So yeah, I mean, it's also, my parents had that really great rule where if I was at a party or if something was going wrong and like I needed them to come pick me up, if I was really drunk, they would automatically come get me, no questions asked, and I wouldn't be in trouble because I came to them for help rather than trying to do something my own way and ending up in an accident or getting into a car with someone who I didn't know was drunk but was. So yeah, I just felt like that was really great for me. I will say, since being abroad, I've seen so many differences with alcohol, because people go to the pub and there really is that pub culture of like, you go there, you get one beer, maybe you get a second one, you hang out with your friends for a while, and then you go home feeling perfectly fine, which I really like, because in the States, when I go to a party with my friends, or if I go to get a drink with my friends, then they're all just like pounding back margaritas, when the whole point of drinking isn't supposed to be to like get really drunk. It should just be like a social event. It should just be something that you do socially.
Yeah, definitely here in Europe, that European taking your time, you know, having that 3-hour dinner has lifestyle. I've definitely noticed that here in the UK. I feel like in America, it's very stereotypical, but it's very true. Everything is fast, you know. So definitely, you know, pounding back those drinks and just trying to get as much in your system as you can, versus in, you know, Europe or the UK, where, you know, you're just taking your sweet time, you're enjoying your drink, it's just such a dichotomy between the two. And, you know, being a citizen of one country but then also having lived in another one now, and here studying abroad, it's just it's bewildering.
I think you said it perfectly. Like, they enjoy their drinks here because it's not about just like trying to get drunk. It's actually like people take the time to make beers that taste amazing. Like, ciders are so great, and so you get to sit down, you get to enjoy it the same way that like I would enjoy a glass of coffee in the morning. But so many people in the States just don't do that. I'm really excited because I am going to go back home and be able to have this whole new experience of what I think drinking should look like just from coming here. And I'm hopefully going to share it with my friends, and maybe they'll accept it, maybe they won't.
Make sure you go back to saying bar hopping instead of pub crawl.
Oh, yeah, that's
because
always
of the difference of the cultural language.
I will say, Arya, you know this, but listeners, y'all don't know this. Sadly, my view on alcohol has changed a lot recently.
Very much so.
My uncle died during my last week of classes. And so I've been having a really hard time with that, because he did die from liver disease because he had been an alcoholic his entire life. And so now when I talk to my mom every day, it's really hard because she'll see me with a glass of wine in my hand and she'll be really nervous, and she's just like, okay, just make sure you don't drink too much, like, take care of your body. It's the only one I made it, so like, don't ruin it. And that's kind of always been her joke, but now it's very serious because she lost her brother to this and I lost my uncle. And it really is such a serious disease when not taken so seriously, which it should be. Yeah. But I mean, Arya, do you want to talk a little bit more about like maybe your college life?
Yeah, so back at home in the U.S., I attend the University of Richmond, and we have a language that's, it's a wet campus or a dry campus at American universities. So essentially a wet campus is that, you know, it's like open carry with alcohol. You're allowed to have open containers of alcohol present around campus. And then there's a dry campus, which is the opposite. It's you're not allowed. So my campus is a dry campus, and Isa maybe told me that as a student at the University of Tulsa in Oklahoma, that they have a wet campus. And we've been talking this out a bit because we've only recently discovered the differences between our college life. But I know that your school is actually changing its rules, and you're not very happy about it.
I am really upset about it. So we just got a new president and provost of our college. And I mean, I love my university. Our past president actually made it a wet campus so that students would be able to drink safely on campus without having to worry about how they're getting home from a bar or getting behind the wheel if they're drunk. And I just thought that was such a great change. But now, since we have this new president, he's trying to really cut down on underage drinking. But in my personal opinion, it kind of makes it more dangerous because now students are trying to drink in like their dorms, and they're doing it so unhealthily because if they go out, they want to be already drunk and like ready to go to that party because they won't be able to drink there.
Exactly.
And so it's like this term called pre-gaming, where they're drinking so much beforehand that it should last them the rest of the night. But really that just leads to an unhealthy amount of drinking in one sitting.
Yeah, I think, the criminalization of making a campus that used to be wet to now dry, on the basis of making a campus safer, I think is just not reaching its goals at all. I know I'm on campus, even though it's a dry campus, we do have a system where the campus police and the kind of like the EMTs, the emergency services on campus, we have a system where even if you are underage, under 21, and you are drinking, and if someone's in trouble, you are allowed to call the police, call emergency services, and you will not be penalized. You will not get in trouble. First priority that this rule is about is just, everyone needs to be safe. And I think that's an amazing thing. I don't think punishing should be the first resort.
Yeah, we should always be trying to help our students and help each other. And I mean, for me, I know that if I was going to get penalized, but my friend was suffering from alcohol poisoning, even if I knew that I was going to get in trouble for being with an underage person who was drinking, I would do it. But so many people are so scared of reaching out to the police at my campus because they know that they're going to get in trouble, not only with the university, but also with our state police, which is just such a serious offense, and we shouldn't be afraid to ask for help, I think is our biggest thing. And so if any of you out there do need help with any sort of alcohol related issues, there are so many different places you can go to, especially within the UK. But I just think it's really important that everyone knows that there is a place where you can get help.
Yes, exactly. There's a ton of resources based in the US and UK, internationally. But wait, going back to the campus, do y'all also have a system about helping students?
We used to, but now since our campus is changing to...
No!
I know, it's horrible because so many students were able to use that before, and then when they changed it, they didn't really tell anyone. And so students started getting in trouble for trying to help their friends, and they had no clue about it.
Wow. So I would like to share a story. Coming back to London a little bit. So I recently took the Jack the Ripper tour, and to the very least, it was very entertaining, but also very unexpected. So I took this tour earlier in April, and for a free tour, which I signed up via Facebook events, I didn't expect the gravitas and performance that came with this. For almost 2.5 hours, the tour guide traveled us back in time to 19th century London with his storytelling skills. He had dramatic readings of the killings, and our presence at the haunted grounds led me to a feeling that like I was an audience member of a show. So as the tour went on, it was very interesting to point out how alcohol and alcoholism became a prevalent theme throughout this tour. The tour guide would emphasize the dim outlook on life in London, and at that time comparing it to the cheap price and easy access to alcohol. Basically, gin was cheaper than clean water, so people would just drink alcohol instead of drinking water. So of course, the unfortunate victims of these murders were prostitutes, and our line of work does not relieve them of the reality of alcohol's impact at the time. But I feel like the culmination of all these factors provides a glimpse of like the harrowing reality of alcohol's past history, the city of London. But now, like looking back and thinking of how that tour has affected me, the performance of it all and the linking of it to alcohol, I just didn't even realize. Jack the Ripper, I just thought murder, but there's just so much more behind it.
I feel like it really shows that alcohol has been such an issue for so long. I mean, it's been around since
humans
were
could
around.
ferment some wheat.
But that thing is, it's been such an issue for so long, and I feel like it's something that so many people just don't talk about. And like even then, it was an underlying issue, but like he could have gone into so much more detail about like what alcohol was really like during the time and like how it actually affected people. The biggest problem for me in American society, I guess, is the strictness and the stigma that is set on alcohol and the way that it leads to like so much unsafe drinking. Like I've told you on my campus, it's been so hard. But like I said, I grew up in a home that talked so openly about alcohol and the truths of excessive drinking. Most kids really aren't taught about safe drinking while growing up, usually right before they go to college or probably their first high school party. Especially since at drinking age is 21, there's really no need to until they are going to experience their first time in an alcohol setting. The truth is, kids have access to alcohol throughout their entire lives through so many different facets, like older siblings, parents, like liquor cabinets, and even strangers if they really want to. From the research I've been doing, there are about 39% of 8th graders, 58% of 10th graders, and 72% of 12th graders in the US have all consumed alcohol to the point of inebriation. And it seriously baffles me that this starts at such an early age that kids are already beginning to have such an unhealthy relationship with alcohol.
That is wild.
Yeah, I mean, all of those facts just really got to me because I had no idea that it started at such a young age for so many different people. Because I understand most people didn't have the same parents I did who were so open about it, and a lot of people can't talk to their parents about these things.
Right.
But I mean, the more prevalent issue, however, is the amount of binge drinking that occurs in young teenage groups. I mean, it's not really a surprise because on TV shows and movies, they're perpetuating the idea that binge drinking is fun and it's what everyone does. But in movies, the worst thing that ever happens to a character right after a night of really heavy drinking is a hangover in the morning, when in reality, there are so many more possibilities. The amount of college students I know who have been sent to the hospital with alcohol poisoning or after being in a drunk driving accident is more than I'm proud to say.
Same.
When the National Institute on Alcohol Abuse actually did their last survey, they found that 5.1 million people ages 12 to 20 had engaged in binge drinking in the past month, and 1.3 million have reported heavy alcohol use in that last month.
Oh my God.
Yeah. These statistics are really overwhelming as they are already really high, but in all honesty, they should be a lot higher because they're not counting the children who hide their alcoholic tendencies, because if those were counted in the total, it might be doubled. That's one of the worst parts about the alcohol stigma in America is most children who abuse alcohol or have a dependency are more afraid of being judged or getting in trouble than they are with the likelihood that this could ruin their lives. One of the statistics I found that really, really shocked me was that kids who started drinking before the age of 15 were twice as likely to continue to abuse alcohol throughout their life and four times more likely to develop a dependency. I mean, that's at 15 years old. At 15, I was worried about like getting kissed for the first time, not being scared about not being able to ask someone for help.
Exactly. So I've been doing a little research myself, and so I came across a study called Alcohol Group Formation, the effects of alcohol on emotion and social bonding, that upon reading confirmed my own beliefs that alcohol facilitates cohesion in social gatherings across cultures. So, I mean, the prevalence of alcohol in, social settings is explained by, our inhibitions are lowered, we become more friendly and sociable. It just overall helps with us be more, talkative and expressive, and it's just across all cultures around the world, alcohol is a staple in social settings. With my past experience, I often made the point to drink before a function, again the term pre-gaming, so I can either like be loosened up and be more sociable as I'm very much introverted, or I could tolerate what was to come and somewhat numb myself out. Which is honestly very problematic to say, and I really shouldn't be doing. But honestly, just the real interdependency between alcohol and so our social lives, especially at the age, our ripe young ages of 20 and 21, is shocking in my opinion.
And I mean, also the idea that we do this to kind of numb ourselves or to get ready to go out into a social setting, but there are so many people that take it a little too far, and that can do so much damage. Like the way that it can ruin relationships for so many different people. I mean, if you drink too much before you go out for a night, I mean, the way that you can go a little too far when you're talking to your friends. Like you said earlier, like you can lose a friend overnight so quickly by just saying the wrong thing because you are inebriated. Like you don't have all of your faculties in place.
So as much as I say that, alcohol reinforces, social group formation, there comes a point where it's just damaging, and to the point of no return, you could lose friends.
So this is actually one of like my big things is why I feel so strongly about two big things. One, create more open spaces for kids to talk openly with an adult about their problem or their worries before it turns into something more serious. And I mean, hopefully that would also help create an open conversation between parents and their children, starting at a young age like mine did. Because I feel that I have a much healthier relationship with alcohol than most people my age do. And I can thank my parents for that so much every day. The second is kind of strange, especially considering everything I just talked about, but I believe that the US should lower their drinking age back to 18 because it was only 30 years ago that they raised it from 18 to 21, and it took a lot of time for every single state to get on board with that. But so I know that I just talked about why children shouldn't drink and how scary it can be, but when students are 21 in the United States, they're most likely juniors or third years in college. That means that before someone is allowed to buy a beer or drink a glass of wine, they are expected to know what they want to do with their career path. They have the ability to buy a gun, they can get married, they can vote, and they can join the army, which I just think is baffling that you can do all of that before you can sit down and legally have a glass of wine. I truly believe that lowering the drinking age would create a safe and legal drinking environment while children are still living at home. At 18, I was about to graduate from high school, and I luckily had parents who didn't have to give me the safe and talk about, like, don't drink, because we had been talking about it for years. Most of my friends had been told not to drink at all, but when they went to college, they went crazy with alcohol because it was so available and it had never been available to them, and they had been so oppressed to the point where because they hadn't had alcohol, they were just going to try everything all at once. I think lowering the drinking age would put an end to this horrible culture of secretiveness that surrounds drinking. Teens are taught, usually the first time they drink with friends, to pretend they aren't drunk if an adult sees them, or if one of their parents came into the room, they would hide the cheap bottle of vodka they were drinking under a blanket in hopes that someone's parent didn't see it. They are taught to be fearful of the parents who are supposed to take care of them. During my time in Europe, I've seen how people go to a bar, drink 2 beers, hang out with their friends, go home feeling fine, but at my school, people only go out to get drunk because of the oppression that they felt their entire lives. And if the United States promoted a more European-style drinking culture that promoted casual and safe drinking, we could become a country that no longer has one of the highest alcohol poisoning percentages in the world. Lowering the drinking age would not stop all binge drinking or alcoholism in the States, but it would start a wave of change, because we can't begin to help those who are struggling with alcoholism when it's only seen in the dark.
Isa, you just took the words out of my mouth. I wholeheartedly agree. Well, that was a perfect conclusion to our podcast episode. It's like you planned this out, Isa.
Well, maybe I did. This is all the time we have for today, but we are so happy that you tuned in to listen to us talk, because we really are here to just help everyone become more informed about what the dangers are out there and how we can start to make a change. And hopefully, if you agree, you can do some more research into this and really look into why we believe that it should be lowered and how to stay safer out there.
Exactly. Isa, do you want to share a little tidbit about resources and what you should do?
So there are a lot of resources out there for you, including one that I found through Project No, which is in conjunction with the American Addiction Center's resources. But there is a phone number that you can call if you feel that you need help or you don't know where to start. It's 1-877-765-3868, and that will help you find some answers to what you're having trouble with and maybe help you find a place that will be able to help you heal and get better. So from us over here at My Favorite Temptation,
this is Arya.
And this is Isa.
And thank you for tuning in. Tune in next week, please.
Bye.